with the tournament, and congratulations on coming thus far. So once again, I am Esther, and I'm going to be the chair for this round. There are two panelists with me. Can you just introduce yourself again for the purpose of the records, except if you don't want that?
Yep, thank you. So hi everyone, there's Chris, one of our panel. Congrats for making this far. Best of luck.
Hi everyone, Cyril, Joachim, CJ for short. Congratulations on making it this far and all the best for the round.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe we can start this debate now. Let's remember the tournament policies, equity policies, timing policies, all still being followed even right now. So I would advise speakers to please time themselves. I would also be using a timer on my own end. And I'll most likely let you know once your time is up in the chat space or by unmuting to let you know. So yeah, on the motion before the House, this House prefers a world where everyone pursues the romantic and sexual relationship with IA robots. I welcome the Prime Minister to start this debate. Here.
Hi, can I be seen heard?
Yes, you can.
I be the Prime Minister. I have he, him pronouns. If any POIs, I'd like to take them on chat or before you can voice out in about 5 or 6 minutes. May I start?
Yes, you can. Just give me a countdown.
Your time begins in 3, 2, 1, start. OG solves two problems. First is that inherent problems to romantic relations, which are like rapes, romantic troubles, which often cause traumas and PTSD toward individuals. Second is about we provide access towards sexual and romantic relations to every single individuals, which deals with the potential best case coming from opposition side. Before moving on to arguments, we have 3 points of framings. Firstly, what does this robot looks like? A, we think individuals are able to adjust what these robots looks like, how they perform based on individual preferences. You can make it really humane. You can also make it like a robot, because in this world, probably every single individual in the world would prefer to have relation with these robots. Therefore, they are likely to have a variety of types of robots because people have different ideals into relations. Secondly, these robots are likely to be cheap and accessible because there's a massive scale of demands due to scale of economy. We think mass production is possible. But secondly, this is because every single individual's need from their own biological needs. Therefore, due to social movement, due to people's pressurization, the price is likely to go down. Thirdly, we don't think these robots are gonna obey you perfectly just as a inhane as slaves. We think you are likely to form humane relations. You're likely to point out what the bad point of view are. You may sometimes have a bad relations or a fight because people rationally understand such kind of relation is their ideal in the long term. But if there are people who would like to prefer a really inhumane relations, like a slave, we think that's totally justifiable because that's a personal relationship who is non-human. That's a robot. That's justifiable. Second framing is that we are able to assume that there does not exist romantic or sexual desire towards human in our world. This is an assumption which is written on emotion that individual pursue relation toward robots. Therefore, individual relations are going to be formed through individual voluntary will. Just like most of us pursue romantic and sexual relations to humans in the status quo, not to insects or animals in most cases, we think people voluntarily form relations with robots. Thirdly, it's about reproduction, which opposition may argue. We think the detailed process and the mechanism of reproduction does not have to be dealt in this debate, probably outside of the scope, because we have to at least assume that such word exists and that continues. Therefore, probably genes are being artificially combined. There must be a factory which produces children. Maybe these children are being grown communally, or there is a possibility that one parent is going to grow child, but we think that depends on communities. Additionally, there is a possibility that humans and humans form pairs, families, groups, and they live together, they cooperate together. But this is not based on people's romantic relations, but this is based on friendship or mutual trust or something else. We think that is a fundamental difference. Not appearance, but people's motivation is totally different. First argument is about a unique and inherent problems to romantic relations. We think romantic relations uniquely cause large amount of troubles inherently. This is because A, what you demand to your partner and what partner demands to you is totally different. Although you have a really strong bond, you have to spend lots of time with that person. There are lots of miscommunication, or even in the beginning of the relation, you have a good relations. In the long run, if you spend time for like 5 or 6 years, your relations, your demand also changes. But secondly, more strongly, this is because humans have a strong obsession and attachment in an irrational level toward romantic relations compared to trust, compared to friendship. This makes human irrational. This like cause actions which creates troubles to yourself. For example, even if you find your partner to be extremely poor, extremely like even if they have a crime record, many individuals have a romantic attachment. That's why they try to get married with those individuals, although that actually make them a bit like economically disadvantageous. Like the romantic like feeling is likely to cause you to make a bit irrationality. We think we solve three types of problems. First is the problem of sexual crimes like rape or unwilling relations. These are oftentimes caused by temptations by men or women or anything. It's impossible for individuals to calculate what kind of potential risk you're likely to cause through that partnerships. That's why lots of especially young women are suffering from this kind of like sexual like crime issues. But secondly, more in general, we are able to deal with the issue of romantic trauma, romantic troubles, which means you're going to be betrayed by the person you have been trusted so much. As a result, like when you break up social relations, you might be expelled from communities, you might lose social position due to like being like called out or something. These are things that are often happening unwilling to your own willness. These problems often cause lots of troubles into your lives. For example, once you're being raped, like you cause PTSD. There are lots of women who cannot even talk with men. Like this causes large amount of social disadvantages. We think we have to deal with this issue. But the third problem is a problem of divorce, which means this often happens into like old couples when they turn 40s, their relations change and they decide to like go different ways. The problem is that for women, like in many cases, women's like most of their salaries are being dependent on their husband. Therefore, these people have to be trapped into poverty. This is also about children because society assumes the existence of two parents. If you be trapped into poverty, you're likely to have less like life experiences, or as a result, your next generation is also likely to be unable to escape from poverty. This is not your own responsibility. This is just a problem of luck. It's so big problem that humans have to face intergenerational problems just because of luck. How can we change this? Firstly, fundamentally unwilling action does not happen. We think human interaction within common sense can happen, but rape case, betraying case never happens because corporations who create those robots avoid such incidents. Secondly, like we think like family relations are likely to be more stable because a long-term like old age divorce or like instability of relations decreases. Your partner, your family may exist, but that's not based on people's romantic obsessions. Therefore, things like sex less, cheatings does not happen. That's good for your stability. That's also good for the next generation, your children. Before moving on to the second argument, I'd like to take CO.
Okay, so how is having a partner as a robot going to protect you from rapes from outsiders?
So problem with outsiders. I already told you that rapes happens because of people's desire to have relations. In our world, we can assume that such desire does not exist on the first place or that extreme minority. Second argument is about access towards sexual relations. We provide access to romance to every single individual. This engages to opposition's best case because even if opposition said that relations with humans, sexual relations is uniquely important, in a status quo that is being arbitrarily allocated, and there are lots of individuals who do not have access to such relations. A, this is about people who have less romantically attractive traits like incel individuals who have not been chosen as partners. B, these are gay, lesbian, like LGBT issues who have large stigmatization from society. They don't have opportunities for relations. Or C, these are like disabled individuals who are being seen as they're being less rational or less responsible. Therefore, they are being taken away of the access toward reproductions. There's a really large like unfairness. Opposition have to defend why this kind of instability, arbitrarity, and unfairness isn't ideal in the status quo, even if the best case relation is good for opposition. On the other side, more number of individuals can access to romantic relations. They can just buy the robots cheaply. They can form individual relations. We think this is fundamentally important access for every single individuals biologically because the people have a biologically extremely strong desire to form this relation. That's why we propose.
All right. Leader of opposition, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I'm audible right now, right?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. I'd like to take the verbal PLI gender pronoun she, her. My time will start in 3, 2, 1, go. The robots, they are the fake human, like there are no emotions, there are no personal stories, they're not have the personality. You cannot cross the world and to meet one person to create your own chemistry and happy memories. You want stand for the sustainable and the long-term relationship for your own individual human being. I think on a victory of the OO's victory is really clear. First of all, let's have some rebuttals against PM. Second of all, let's co-opting their cases and flip why this romantic and the sexual relationship with a real person and uniquely benefit you individual well-being. But third of all, what these robots cannot provide and really toxic, even worse. Number one, I think some cases in the PM's case talk about some problems that they want to tackle with. It's like, oh, these two kind of human beings may have misunderstanding toward each other. They have conflicts. They have these voices, or maybe the rape cases, right? I think take towards the case in the open government's cases. People are maybe irrational. People may have this emotional suffering, etc. First of all, I think still have the solutions to consume and tackle these problems in our status quo in the reality life. The people too, they have this discussion. We see so many couples, they can stand together and they have to actually to learn how to love each other. And they can have the open talks, they can learn by how to deal with the problems in their life. Second of all, even if they have the breakup or even if they have the problems, so divorces, etc., we still think it's a good thing because you can be mature, because you can learn how to judge find a different person that you really want and how to grow up, and you have the more inner, bigger, strong with yourself, or the mature, the kind of the mindset, and also you can how to view yourself to be the resilient person, to stronger person. It is also helpful for you to tackle some problems, no matter like career life or how you to treat a relationship with your family members, etc. Third of all, I think the rape, sorry later, the kind of the cases of the rape or the kind of the very hard and toxic problems, it is kind of really kind of rare and also extreme cases we talk about. But I don't think that in OG's cases they can get any better. And what's even worse is that I think the companies, when they design to avoid this so-called, you can avoid the divorces, it's not really true, because when it's cheaper and accessible, it is more likely for you to manipulate, and also more likely for you to change all the time frequently, because there is no very high barrier of the cost. There are no like the benefits for you to care about the robots itself. So then move on. Let's say, first of all, why this romantic sexual relationship with a real person is so unique. Let's have some characterization of how you feel like to have the relationship with a romantic person. First of all, it is about two person. You know each other, you get together, you have the same, like the similar, the interest, and the fall in love with the different your understanding with the different uncertainties, and maybe on some controllable factors across the geographical factors, different ages, and also different values. And the fun similarity by the two, maybe the two totally different person, you have some similarity and find to fall in love with. First of all, I think it is to know each other. You know deep what is the somehow the personality, and also two different stories to get familiar with. You may fight for some good future goods and to be a better version of yourself. It's really unique because you can learn how to tolerate and how to show the kindness and how to show the respect to the people around you and also your partner, right? So it's about many. Still, maybe you have some complicated relationship and also interactions with the individual. You may have the conflicts. You may have some quarrels. You may want to learn how to forgive because you love this person. You have some different values toward each other. You have the different, the kind of the perception towards the life and the persons. You have the different personality. You want to talk and never you talk about this person because you want to be a good person. This is the inner pursuit for the one individual. But second of all, you can create a lot of meaningful and happy memories with the one individual. You can have the date, you can have the hangout, you can have the travels with different places. I think comparatively, if you fall in love with kind of robots, their kind of interactions is really not exist anymore, because the robots that they design different companies. Even you say they have the deep learning and algorithms, they learn from some knowledges. It's already in the kind of the pool. This doesn't mean that you have some uncertainty and chemical traits to happen within you. Why is so meaningful? I think first of all, even if you have some bad, like toxic relationship, or the OG's like the worst scenario is that they have the divorces or some very toxic emotional damages. Why is so still very meaningful? First of all, you have the reflections. You have some review about yourself. You want to correct something, right? Why there are some bad people? Why I meet those kind of people? What's the problem here? Why I should find to make myself better? How to get these problems get any better? Second of all, you can get really grow and have found your inner peace and inner power. You get stronger. You get more resilient. You get more maturity, more likely to tackle down the long-term problems, no matter in the career and no matter in some social problems. You know how to tackle it because you have the stronger, the kind of to find some problems in you. But third of all, you get learn what you really want because you can exclude it out other choices. This is about you find maybe this person is not suited for you, and you just have long maybe years of 3 years or 4 years of this relationship, and you find another person. Maybe another person maybe is more suited for you, in the long term sustainable, fine for you. And what do you want? What kind of person that really for your life? I think it's more important. Before to why robots can more toxic. What's her point? Like CG.
OG?
Where's the OG? Yeah, OG.
Opposition cannot defend your best case scenario. You have to defend the status quo. Millions of people cannot recover from divorce. Lots of young people are suffering from PTSD after rape, or people don't even have access towards romance on the first place. You have to deal with these cases who are actually majority.
First of all, I think the majority of the cases is still the people want to find the real person and also the meaningful discussion and interactions with the real person because they have found the different family members, etc., etc. Second of all, I still think that the people they don't need to maybe the kind of divorces this problem still can be solved in our set house. So we'll already talk about that. But what is even worse in our set houses is that robots cannot make people to find what they really want, but more likely to be the toxic relationship. Let's look at the robots. I think it's still made by the algorithm and deep learning, right? You can more likely to easily to manipulate those kind of robots because you only fall in love with another version of yourself. It's like you this kind of thing. I think the principles of the robots designed by this company is not to hurt the human beings, the real person, right? So they're trying to protect you. They are not trying to protect themselves. I think this kind of thing is that even as the individual, if you want to do some bad things, for example, you don't want to care, then you don't want to have this discussion with the robots, or you have the very casual sex relationship with this robots. I think the companies, they cannot really regulate this problem in a very right way. But second of all, the robots, even if you hurt them, they cannot really address their problems by themselves because they don't have how to solve this emotional the damages to themselves still by the individual. I think this even bigger problems and into the vicious circle because individuals, they never know how to tackle with the problem individually from their friend circle, make them even more toxic and don't know how to trade the people around them, and frequently maybe cheaper accessible these robots make them don't like to trade the people in a very sustainable in the long run way. I'm so proud to oppose.
All right, I thank the leader of opposition for that speech. I now welcome the Deputy Prime Minister. Ready when you are.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. If you have any voice, please just write on chats. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Three things to do my speech. First, some framings and more detailed framing. And secondly, the rebuttal to LO speech. Thirdly, the extension and also weighing. First point, some framings to talk about more about our world. First, we see that in the government paradigm, about the accessibility, in the government paradigm, at least all people can pursue relationship fitted to them. But we see that in the opposition paradigm, there are some people who are not good at, for example, to making romantic relationships for example, sometimes their face is ugly, or because they are religious minority, or they are sexual minority, or their financial problem, etc., etc. We think that even if you are suffering in these cases in this world, we think that in ourselves, house, you don't need to suffer at all, right? First question is, why do you have the access to robots? We give you 4 structural reasons. First, in our sales house, there are so many companies who compete each other to make a good robot. That is a reason why you can have the robot which is really suited for you. But secondly, we think that in our sales house, there is a large demand for this kind of robot. Literally all population have the demand to make a good relationship and the romantic relationship with robot, right? That is a reason why, because of the market mechanization, we think that in our sales house, the price of robot will be much, much cheaper. 3, we think that in our sales house, country will subsidize for you to purchase this romantic relationship robot. A, because country government do have a natural political incentive to reflect people's voices. But B, we think that they do have the access incentive to cater to the majority of the population. That is the reason why, even if you are suffering from the poverty, in our sales house, you do have the access to this robot. But 4, we think that it is at least comparatively better than the opposition paradigm, because if you want to have a romantic relationship in their house, you need to use tremendous amount of money for your makeup, or to go to dating, or to go to Disneyland, etc. This kind of money is really, really wasted, but poor people continue to need to pay in the opposition paradigm. Such kind of thing is unlikely to happen in our house. Second framing, why you can have the access with the more suited partner in our sales house. One, as I explained before, there are so many companies and they're competing each other, which naturally means that they do have the natural profit incentive to invest a very, very good robot in our sales house. But B, we think that there are so many large demands, as I explained before. That is a reason why even companies provide so many various kinds of robot in our sales house. For example, I'm not sure, but 50 or 100 types of robot, we can provide this kind of thing to suit it to the individual, right? But thirdly, it is literally the artificial intelligence, which means that we will accumulate your own data by living together with you. But also this kind of data can be changed if you get older, right? That is a reason why, simply because it is the artificial intelligence who naturally collect data from you, it must be suited for you, right? Fourthly, opposition side say, and OO actually says that different personality is important. If you think so, and if people think so, we say that it can be achieved in our sales house, right? It doesn't need to be really, really suited for you. If you want to have some conflict with your partner, it can be also achieved in our sales house. We do have the fear to make this kind of robot in the first place. Second, I'll talk about why everyone should have the access to this. First, we think that it should be the inherent right for the human being, because it is biological desire to make a romantic and the sexual desire with other people. That is a reason why everyone should have the access. But B, in our society, we think that society regard marriage as an important thing. But in the current situation, there are so many people who are unable to marry in the first place. That is a reason why we need to be really inclusive and try to provide a better option for these people, right? But also we think that in the current situation, media agitate people to try to get married, but there are some people obviously that who are unable to marry because of the trauma of the sexual harassment or sexual rape. That is a reason why we need to provide to all people, right? Secondly, the response to today's opening opposition. First, they say that even in the current situation, rape problem can be solved. It is empirically wrong, right? Even though there's so many legislatures and regulations, millions of people are suffering from the rape, right? But we think that important thing here is that in our sales house, we do not have the sexual desire toward human, because you can fulfill the desire with the robot, right? That is the reason why we do not have any robot. We do not have even one case of rape toward human being in our sales house. But B, they say that divorce is not actually problematic. We do not think so. First, you do have the short-term sadness in the first place, but we think that for so many people, it is a long-term sadness in their life. But secondly, we do think that in our society, we do have the social stigma saying that if you get divorced, you're like your personality is not really good, etc. Right? That is a reason why in our society divorce is so problematic. But more important thing here is that if you are financially dependent on your partner, and if you get divorced, you are literally dying, right? Because you do not have any job in many cases, right? But also, I think there's a case that you need to leave your children simply because your partner will take your children. That is the reason why it is tremendously important argument. Some responses to opening opposition case, they just assertively say that you can mature yourself through relationship. First, we are not sure why this argument is important. Being here is that in our sales house, there is no rape cases, but also we think that in our sales house, even if you are unable to find a partner in the current situation, you're able to find a partner in exclusively in the government paradigm. But secondly, we think that this kind of relationship or the matureness is not exclusive in the first place. Even in our sales house, you do have the friendship, you do have the family members, you do have your own children, right? That is a reason why we think that even in our sales house, we think that you do have such kind of relationship, but also we think that you may have the kind of relationship with your robot, right? I mean that your partner. But certainly we think that this kind of robot is really, really suited for you, right? I mean that if you want to mature yourself through making relationship with your robot, you can literally do in our sales house. There's no delta in the first place, right? The wing here is really simple within. First, within the OG's argument is the most impactful because the sexual crime or the rape is very, very traumatic. That is a reason why there are so many women, like hundreds of thousands of women who are unable to live or who sometimes they commit suicide. That is a reason why we think that this kind of desire in itself should never be allowed. That is a reason why we think that all human beings should have the desire with robot. But secondly, we think that in general, romantic relationship in itself is problematic, right? Because you sometimes be betrayed from somebody who you trust or this kind of thing, right? And sometimes you will be expelled by the community members, and such kind of thing is really likely to happen maybe around you, right? That is the reason why we propose.
All right. I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. Please let's do well to prioritize taking and asking POIs. It's important for engagement. Deputy Leader of Opposition, ready when you are.
Okay. Am I audible? Sorry, am I audible? Sorry.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, audible.
Okay. Wait a second. I just set my timer. Okay. Okay, yeah, before my speech, I just want to shout out my partner. She's so dedicated and good. Yeah. Okay, so, verbal PI, probably 5 minutes. Okay, so don't interrupt me before 5. Okay, my speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. OG's frame knife their own case because their framing is that artificial intelligence robots don't have the difference with the human, with the real humans. First of all, they say what they won't totally obey to the human beings. Yeah, it is also true for the real romantic relationship because your partners won't really obey to you. But they say that, but they then say, which means that when you have for example, you have this kind of artificial intelligence robots, and they probably these kind of artificial intelligence robots also don't like you because they also have their own treatment because they also know that you treat them bad. For example, you treat them not well, and also they realize that they also cannot love you and also treat you bad. For example, they don't want to love with you or have the sex with you, which means that this is also show how they actually don't totally obey to you, right? And second is that it is also true. For example, in your set of house, you have less rape and also traumatic. But first of all, rape is the case of rape is actually very, very real internal the marriage or internal the relationship. Most of the raping cases are actually from the outsiders or those people that you are not familiar with at the very first place. So their impacts are actually limited in the very, very small amount of the case. Second is that they say, for example, the trouble also have this kind of they say trouble also has. We think that actually the trouble also has because the artificial intelligence robots, for example, they have their own thought when they realize some kind of things, when they know a lot of knowledge in the world, they are and also you feel they are very perfect. You are not, for example, have the romantic relationship with a real human. You are just, for example, have the feeling that you are have the love with a God that actually he or she know everything in the world, and it's so perfect that you cannot even match her at the very him at the very first place, which means this actually diminish a lot of the loving sentiment or the loving sense you want to gain from the real love relationships. OG cannot fear. OG can fear the accessibility in their set of house, but they cannot fear the quality of the artificial intelligence robots. The problem still exists in their set of house when we still have the division of the poor people and the rich people. For example, poor people or the minority peoples will still get a very low quality artificial intelligence robot in their set of house. For example, they are not functions well. For example, they still have the discrimination to certain group of peoples, which this kind of thought embedded by the factories or by the designers, or still get this kind of not function well robots, which means in their set of house, the experience of the artificial intelligence robot for those minority or the poor people still will be even worse in their set of house when they just receive the very less functional, less human-like robots in their set of house. So they say in our set of house, some people cannot get access to the love. It is true, but in their set of house, things will be even worse because all these kind of less functional robots destroy all this kind of relationship, destroy all this kind of life for those minorities that badly need this kind of love in the status quo. The framing on top in our set of house is that first of all, what is the unique difference between the real human relationship and with the artificial intelligence robots in the status quo? The first is actually disobedience. The framing is actually very different from the government side of the world. We say robots is actually very obedient to the human beings because I will give the justification. First of all, the producers or the factories or the designers want to sell their robots more. They do not want their robots to treat to make their customers to feel the less experience, to do not have the bad experience. So they will program them or design them to the full obedience to the human beings. This is most likely all the ways that they will sell the most number of the robots to the customers because they want their robots to make the customer happy. So they want the robots to obey to the human beings, even obey to human beings. This is also in line with the law of the robots to say that the design of the robot should totally obey to the human beings. Why this actually very, very harmful and also destroy or ruin all this kind of human loving relationships in the system. First of all, what is the unique benefit or the unique interest of the little conflicts or the small quarrels that happens in the loving relationship? Noted here, the nuance of such kind of a little conflicts or the small quarrels within the loving relationships in the real human beings. I'm not talking about, for example, very severe divergence, very severe conflicts. I just say about, for example, some little difference or the little such kind of things, because this is actually the most common. Because most common things that happen in the loving relationships, what this kind of what other kind of very severe conflicts or even the fightings is actually very, very real, and it's often resort to the, for example, you just call the police and solve these kind of things. What is the unique benefits of such kind of a little conflicts or the little divergence of the opinions between the two real human beings? It is that, for example, it also look like where you have the divergence of opinions with your partners on the Turing destinations in the real human loving relationship. You will then discuss with your partner, and also you will For example, one party will just make the sessions and also agree at the end of the day. And during this kind of a small debate or the small quarrels, you are improving actually improving your learning and also mutual understanding between others, also improving your love between others, because actually enhance the mutual understanding. Even if you get this kind of hurt or do not feel quite happy with these kind of little quarrels, you still feel very, very happy. You still after days you still very hard, still feel very good, because another party may choose to comfort you or choose to understand you, and you also may choose to understand your partners. And it's also such kind of a small conflicts is actually, for example, lead to more talking and more understanding or more communications, which means the you two sides actually know each other better. Compare with the loving relationship with artificial intelligence. First of all, you will feel that this kind of artificial intelligence robot is totally obedient to you and obey to every kind of opinions. If such kind of decisions is not life-threatening, the robots will not interfere in these kind of things, which means that all the choices, all the words, all these kind of opinions, robot will agree with you. You are feeling very, very plain, with no interest, with no interesting things, with no such kind of things that make you to feel happy. All this kind of relationship is very, very plain, which means that you don't want to engage in this kind of a relationship with the artificial intelligence robots in the future more. And second is that why does actually harm your social ability? Notice here, my partner already tell you how you find your partner. Probably you find your partner on the dating app, on the workmate, on this kind of, for example, people grown up with you. All this kind of, for example, robots do not have the self-actualization, do not have the work, do not have the dreams. However, all these kind of things uniquely exist in the human beings, where you can work with your partner together, where you can achieve your dreams with your partner together, where you can do the self-actualization with your real partners together. All these kind of things uniquely make your loving relationships to grow further and also have a better future. All these kind of things do not exist in the robots because they only obey to you with no self-awareness. Based on that, I'm very proud to post.
All right, I thank the deputy leader of opposition for the speech. That also brings us to the end of the opening half. Now I welcome.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So shout out to my teammate being here, even if she's sick. So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels don't buy into opening opposition case. Their burden in this debate was to support and defend a world with emotional bond with human, not to slander what our world would look like. This house preferred motion. It's win our rights to fiat that these robots exist from the start and do not have these bad programming. And so far as their whole case relies on these robots being bad, they'll make disobedience. They never engage with our ground and never engage with this debate. A few points of clarification and a few points of rebuttals first. I think one, OG in this debate was right in pointing out why they get more access to relationship. The problem is they never gave you a principle on why it's justified for everyone to have access to relationship. We'll prove that to you. Secondly, OG's case in this debate was very extreme and uncharitable. We'll give you a better version of the case where we defend the actual problem of small square rules in relationship that could lead to the breakup itself. Thirdly, we don't want to engage with OO insofar as their whole case in this debate relies on the premise of the robot being bad. Insofar as they haven't been charitable, we don't think it's charitable for us to engage on that ground. But a few more rebuttals first. I think one, right? Their whole premise, like the whole other case, other than robots being bad, is that people become manipulative because they manipulate these robots. The important thing to preface here, right, is that they never prove to us why being manipulated of these robots is bad. We think inherently in a relationship itself, with the possibility of being harmed, having the ability to control the relationship is something good. Secondly, both bench in this debate never define what is a relationship itself. We think in a relationship, there's a dominant and sub-dominant person. That is to say the value of love you give to each other is not fair, and there's always someone in control of power. We think that is inherently unjustified, and therefore we'll engage on that ground itself. And then, in terms of extension and a few point of metric first, important thing to preface, right? That all opposition bench in this debate needs to engage on the value of our road, as this is this house preferred motion. They needed to prove to us why emotional bond still matters in our world, in so much as these robots exist for a long time in this debate. With that being said, my first extension will be a horizontal extension on why it's probably justified for everyone to have access to a relationship in the form very high. 5 reasons. One, you can't control the factor of their life. That is to say that you can't control other people's life in this debate. The third thing to preface here, right, is that you can't control how other people think and how they will. That's why when you go in a relationship, it's hard for you to demand and ask for them the same thing you want. But secondly, not everyone is born with equal chance. That is to say that not everyone has access to these relationships. Some people are born with disability, some people are ugly, some people are short. The important thing to preface here is that relationship was never fair from the start if it's relying on human factors and human judgment. We think that's inherently wrong and inherently morally wrong. Thirdly, love is not equal. The important thing to preface here is that love is not given equal to everyone. Some people get more love because of their ability and their position in birth. Some people don't get as much love. Some people have the ability to control how much love they get and they get sent out. The important thing then is to show you why that this love is inherently not fair when everyone gets this burden itself. What is the most important about this principle? This principle, one, is not relying on whether the robot is bad or not. We think it's just inherently false that not everyone gets access to love, and so as love is the important thing in this debate. But two, it's inherently false even further if they try to frame this principle anyway. We think robot gives you the best chance of love because they're most likely are going to be programmed to not harm these kind of things in this debate. Before that, I'll take a POI from OO.
Yes, even if take your best cases that it want to form the long-term meaningful relationship because it's cheap and accessible, you have to lower down the cost, you frequently change, and you never have the incentive to trade and love the person around you.
Three things. One, let's take away cost from this debate, right? We think these AI probably will be able to calculate that you don't need to spend as much in this debate. But two, it's in our right to fiat to say that you probably don't have to pay for these kind of robots. But two, they never proved us why the fact that you advancing as a person is important in our world. The point of preface that in our world, we value the value of these robots to the point that we think that the value of having these kind of relationships grow is probably not going to happen until as the robot is going to be able to make sure you go on the correct set in life. Then into our practical
UI.
Parts. I won't take the POI. One, on why we get increased autonomy over relationship and the importance of that. Two, why the robots will probably make the most calculated decisions and therefore harm you the less. And three, why we get less prejudged in society overall and therefore we have more fulfilling relationship. One, on why you get more autonomy. I think one, there's less fear of cheating and less fear of problematic problems in our world when people know that at least these robots are tame and control. The important thing to preface here is that these robots probably don't have emotional connection. We think that's fine. And so as say you get to be the person in control of this relationship itself. Secondly, these robots probably will only make comment on service level or calculate the probability of these comments hurting you itself. And this is an important one because these robots probably won't do things that harm you to a degree that hurts their heart and make the relationship break. But two, it allows you to provide the role of being hurt and the one providing love itself, which means that it's all justifiably fair for everyone to have this. We think then it's fair because everyone then deserves the autonomy over relationship and not the autonomy as someone being in the subdominant role in the relationship itself. Secondly, then, on why robot makes the most calculated decisions. I think one, the robot probably will calculate your decisions to make sure that you don't harm other people or you don't harm yourself. The important thing then is that the robot calculates the best way to keep the relationship wrong, but two, it won't cross any lines. The important thing to preface is that the robot isn't any materialistic value. It calculates what you need and what you don't need to make sure you live the best life possible. Secondly, then, the robot probably will stop problems such as problematic rape, right?
UI.
It knows why when you have such hormone increase and when you have problematic solution to measure it. Two, the robot will measure to ensure that you're a person and as a person will not do things that are wrong. I think the POI was sealed in.
Okay, so assuming that everything in life is arbitrary and free will doesn't exist, would you depend on what where all relationships are based on AIs?
We told you that it's our burden in this debate to defend this world. Insofar as to say, we think that not all relationships, but romantic relationships, we think that on our side, you probably still get relationships with other humans because they coexist in society. Our burden in the debate is to defend a world where all love and sexual romantic relationships are with AI. Secondly, then on our extension about why we get less prejudged in society overall as a whole. The important to preface here, right, is that in our society, there'll be less standard on how you judge other people. For example, there's less standard of comparativing your partner with other partner. There's less comparative of this person being better or this date being better. The important thing to preface here is that when everyone looks towards the standard of AI, they're dating essentially the same person with different way of treating. That means that the AI itself lowers the barrier of standards and entry in society itself. But two, this also increased the barrier of entry to relationships because not everyone has to have the demands, have to have good looks to get relationship itself. Thirdly, this is important because this creates more fulfilling relationships. This is more fulfilling because one, you're in the position where you're providing and gaining love from the robot itself. Two, this person is probably not going to judge you because the robot only looks at your data to give you the best result and best response. This means that you're less insecure about your behavior around your loved ones and are able to express yourself better in this debate. But three, you get more accessibility in internal use. You don't have to have a partner that inherently can ignore you, can have mood swings, and can have limit accessibility and decide that on that day they don't want to talk with you. The important thing to preface overall, right? Why we way over other benches debate is because one, we engage on the correct parallel motion after this house prefer motion. Two, we prove to you that it's justified for everyone to have relationships, which allows us to coerce the benefit for opening government. We prove to you three that we probably get better practical benefits and increased autonomy insofar as our role in this debate does not need emotional bond. Four, it's CEO cannot push us in this debate that we don't get social relationships. We still think as a world with humans inside of it, people will still engage and talk with each other. For those reasons above, proud to support.
All right, I thank the member of government for the speech. Now I welcome member of opposition. Ready when you are.
Okay, can I be heard?
Yes, you're audible.
All right then. Okay, hold on. Let me just throw out my notes. Okay, yeah, before I start my speech, I'd just like to thank Victoria for accepting and being with me through this character development arc throughout the whole weekend. And yeah, I highly appreciate you as a teammate. Okay, with being said, my notes are so messy right now. Hold on. I'll take the eyes in the chat. There's nothing wrong with choosing what your heart tells you to do. We think that love is something that is powerful, that transcends beyond geological borders and financial status. In government bench, they take away all the shine and joy and what makes it so beautiful in the first place. We think the moment that you try to rationalize love, it is a formula for unhappiness. That's why an opposition in closing, we choose love over sex toys. Now, engage with what was being said, but throughout this whole government bench thing. Because that's an impractical definition coming from CG. What they're saying, these relationships are unequal. It's one person in submissive position and one person in dominated position. That's BDSM, where people are role playing and alpha males and toxic masculinity in real life. It's a very practical definition of love in themselves. They also to defend in the best case, but people are on equal groundings, where people of similar status come together and have a similar ground and mutual respect together. That's the biggest argument that all the government bench has been telling us about, which is the idea on accessibility. For current minorities, such as people with disabilities who are ugly, cannot find love. We think there are two responses to this. Firstly, there's a highly diverse society where there are different spectrums of love and different definitions. There's also like over 7 billion people. I think you have barely enough options out there to find love for yourselves. But two, I would say in where you're only morphing yourself into giving them these options, those people already exist in our current status quo, where people do have AI simulations if they are in the most extreme cases of isolation. We don't really get why they are justified in imposing this into a broad majority of cases where people do actually find love and discover that during their own process. The second idea then is basically on autonomy and the benefit of judgment. Okay, so the basic idea is that people will not have fear of cheating and people like leaving them or something. I think this is still something that is bad. That is bad because it's based on the foundation of insecurity and exerting control. It's not based on mutual trust, and therefore it is not a healthy relationship for people. I'm positive that in the long run, their interaction and their viewpoints and love are also going to influence their other social relationships as well, which is why it's going to be incredibly unhealthy, not only for their loved ones, but also to coworkers and other people they may meet in the future. Let's look at opening government's case. Their own cases of sex or rape or trauma. It's basically out of this debate, considering that in the status quo, people still have sex toys, but rape still occurs because they do that as their desire to be in control of power. We don't really think it's something that should be stopped by AI itself, but it's our compromise. It's not you wouldn't give a dog to a serial killer for them to beat around. You wouldn't let them enter society. Those people need to have a therapist and seek rehab. But rather than seeking a therapist, they decide to detach from romantic relationships, human at all, and opt for these AI relationships. That is why their case is really irrelevant. Their two other main ideas is on stability. I don't think all the arguments based on the idea that the metric in love is on stability for every single person. So it's pretty uncharitable, and that's why they cannot truly gain happiness. See, the idea of rationalizing in love, but is the love about irrationalizing and without worrying about any other consequences or following what you give and what you take? It's not always an equal equation. We think that you should take those without or like who you are in the past should not define who you are in the present from their side. But they try to rationalize all these factors. It takes away all the beauty, and that's why you shouldn't like. If the implication is that you shouldn't love someone with a poor financial background in the first place. I have two extensions in my speech. Firstly, why are people going to be in their state zone, and they are unable to improve themselves. This engages directly with the cases of opening government or with the government bench in general. Part of love, as stated by opening opposition, is that humans together as unique beings, and they differ in some way, and they help each other grow and improve. So we think this is simply arguing on the benefits of love. We're going to be comparative as to why this is actually harmful on side opposition. On government. If Love Bench wants to claim all the benefits of familiar relationships in workplaces, in relationships, they concede that there are interactions between humans that are critical for growth, and that's why it cannot be replaced by a robot. But if they also want to criticize their unequalness in the social hierarchy, they cannot just disregard the harms and claim the benefits of having a robot. So they cannot have their cake and eat it. Right then, we on the benefits of love. Why is this uniquely important to humans then? Since these robots are programmed to talk to you, and this single decision that it makes, it's going to be based on your own preferences to have. That's why it's not have any different views and insights from these unique human beings who have gained it through their own thinking, through their own culture, or through their own religion. The robot wants to avoid conflicts in general, and their goal is to maximize fulfillment for the individual who are using them. Why is the impact that we provide them? And for in the best case, that there are things you will never know. For example, you need to make sacrifices and be more empathetic towards your partners and be more aware of their own mental health needs. That's when you're going to with this robot for the rest of your life. You're going to lose new potentials for improvement as well. Worst case, then, where people are going to have feelings dedicated towards them, they're going to be thirsty, become narcissists, and feed into their own egos. But two, in the worst case of OG on discrimination, I think that's going to be worsened on their side of the house, where values like misogyny is going to be entrenched because now the male person who uses the robot is going to keep on implementing on that obedient robot. It will never get out of that toxic cycle, and that's why they're going to have all these values always exist on their side. And lastly, people will never be able to see their own flaws and their own problems. And they are the problem, or maybe they are the actual manipulators in the relationship. People do not have self-growth. That's when you make people become the worst versions of themselves. Why are people not going to have satisfaction in this relationship? In order to appreciate the light, you also need to embrace the darkness. That's why love, much like life, is trial and error, where you have ups and downs. When you're being in love, where you process the pain and cry your heart out after a breakup, and you find new love. It's so important that A, it grows emotional maturity after you go like 7 stages of grief. But B, according to those experiences, then people are able to know more about what they want and what they don't want in a relationship. This is an opportunity for them to get in touch with their own inner self, and they value their self-love that much more. Right. Insecure people are only going to have the robots feeding into their own egos, or people who are never going to change and improve the better growth of their own mental mindset. We see that pain is beauty too, and it is what makes life valuable. Of emotions that you're going to experience. It's not what the CG is basically telling you here. It tells you that people are going to be much better because the robot is quote unquote you on the right path. It's literally the point of robot dictatorship. You're not going to be like life is going to be predetermined beforehand, especially in romantic relationships. Have any growth and don't have the meaning in life in general. For those reasons, people need to see
All right, I thank the member of opposition for the speech. Now I welcome the government whip. Ready when you are.
All right, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, I'll take POIs through chat. In a world where humans are not inherently made for each other and a lot of hurt and insecurity get along the way, we prefer, although there's no other way to say this without sounding extremely problematic, a world where humans connect with AI instead. My speech will consist of threefold to prove why CG wins over every team in this debate today. First, on responses to O and CO with a little bit of comparison. With a little bit of comparison in between. And lastly, on why our extension is so important and exclusive in this debate. But first, on responses to O, right? And I'd like to address first this intuition dump on both sides on how AI doesn't have genuine and unique emotions. Firstly, we think this is untrue because just because an emotion is experienced with AI does not make it less meaningful. This is given that we already provided characterization on how AI can simulate its background and interact with the partner in a complex and intricate way that simulates a human. We reject this uncharitable characterization that comes from opposition bench. But secondly, even if we buy their characterization, the extent to which humans get emotional fulfillment on our side is subjective. So even if humans purchase their AI because they feel happy with it, or they feel happy that the AI is obedient, the opening opposition has no right to judge on the fact that they feel happy with this. This looks like humans having conversations with their AI or sexual relations with that AI. This proves that there's still an extent of happiness on our side of the world, and the opposition has a certain burden to engage with this. They cannot just say that, oh, because we have little quarrels and we have other partners on our side of the world to resolve major issues in the relationship, that we solve every single problem, because we already tell you about the major issues that may present in a relationship. They have to engage with this extremely detrimental impact. But even if we take their best case scenario, even if we don't have emotional connections, the problem with emotional needs is when you have emotional harms, right? And this is when CG comes in with a new extension on adverse impacts, such as insecurity or autonomy within a relationship. But also, because we prove to you that on our side, there are other ways to pursue satisfaction and fulfillment within a relationship, and we're able to bring positive benefits, such as having human autonomy, that's when we're able to trade off the principle that OO gave us, because overall, individuals are happier on our side of the world and do not have to experience the adverse impacts, such as like being abused by your partner or feeling unsatisfied in the relationship. So that's why the weighing of this is as follows. Note that the whole opening opposition's principle is contingent on the fact that, oh, partners are the best actors in most cases and can take you out in dates. But in most case scenarios, their burden is to prove that why in most case scenarios, these partners are the best actors into providing fulfilling relationships in order to prefer a world over the other, right? And that's when we reject their characterization on how partners are always loving and strong, because they don't engage with the status quo. This is when we tell you that humans are not fundamentally made for each other. We tell you that 50% of people feel unhappy or insecure within their relationship. So insofar as this harm exists, we're able to more positively change the world compared to OO, given that we still provide you an extent of benefits, and we also show you harms, while O does not have any delta in this debate today. But now on to CO. The first thing they do is they have a burden push on us by saying that we have to defend a world where people have equal grounding. We think that this is not within our burden, but rather the CO's burden and both the opposition side burden that they have not been able to prove, because that is not the status quo, right? In reality, people are not on equal grounding. Opposition side has to defend the status quo where we don't live in a rose-colored world. We have already told you that a certain group of vulnerable stakeholders, such as people with communication issues or people that cannot connect with 50 people within their area, they cannot access relationships. So in the end of the day, our point still stands that we have more access to love. I'll take you later. But also, CEO's framing, the whole case of CEO's is extremely uncharitable, because their framing of AI is uncharitable as to say that only people who have no social life use it. This is because the whole premise of their case is based on a taboo of AI by saying that it cannot provide true interactions, right? We believe that it is within our fiat to assume that everyone will use this AI, meaning that this technology will be highly adaptive towards humans. We still achieve palpable emotional fulfillment on our side of the world in every other aspect. We also retain all our benefits on the fact that we still have autonomy, given that the framing this opposition gives us is that AI is obedient and AI is suited to the buyer's needs. Therefore, we still think that this happiness that we tell you in our argument still stands at the end of the day, and their framing is extremely uncharitable. Before I continue, I'll take a POI.
The argument and the characterization in your set of house of the robot sounds like a knowledgeable servant. Will you love will you love such kind of a servant? And how about you just buying a very, very bad and a less functional robot in your set of house?
Okay, well, let me tell you a few. First of all, let me tell you a few reasons why our characterization is very likely. We see that AI depends on the input that a human puts into it. We think that it's unlikely that humans will command their AI around like a maid, but rather have real conversations and engage in their background. AI also can simulate these kind of backgrounds to fit with the human and understand the human more on a deep emotional connection. We also think that even if the robot may not have raw emotional connections like you say, we're still able to exchange these kind of conversations for people. We're still able to provide accessibility rather than not having any connection at all on their side of the world, but also we're able to provide more safety within relationships as the harms we have already addressed before. Therefore, we think none of their characterization can weigh against all of this. But lastly, even in the best case scenario of CO, note that values like misogyny and narcissism, as they have said, still exist on their side of the world. They give us no analysis on why that's more likely on our side when AI exists. We won't take this trade-off then, because we think it's actually worse when human beings that may be disobedient or human beings that have feelings have to take the ramifications of their partner being narcissistic. They have to be abused by their partner on their side of the world. We won't take this trade-off. They need to engage with the best case scenario from government side where love actually exists. They have been far too uncharitable to you in this debate today. But now on to why our extension is more important. We think we have overall been able to add more impactful characterization on how relationships is more relevant to, and this is relevant to the exclusive extension of our autonomy, but also we think we increase happiness and understanding in the relationship. I'd like to reiterate the impact of our extension because while OG only engages with preventing the bads of relationship, such as breakups and divorce, we focus on why these consequences happen in the first place, about people's lifetime experience. This is exclusive to CG, therefore, because we provide on the large scale how we're able to have all individuals get fulfilling relationships and also provide a more positive case. But not only stopping at accessibility, we also provide on a principle ground why everyone deserves a chance of emotional fulfillment compared to the one-liner that OG gives. It's not only about accessibility of finding a partner, we engage with the best case scenario and say that when people are able to find relationships, we're able to provide accessibility for partners within the process of the relationship overall. Therefore, CG wins this debate. Very proud to propose.
All right, I thank the government whip for that speech. That brings us to the end of the government bench. Now I welcome the opposition whip speaker. Ready when you are.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'll take POIs in the chat. And shout out to my teammate for being girl boss this whole tournament. Okay. On proposition, AI robs people out of happiness when they have everything predetermined for them. They miss out on experience of pain and joy. Their life is literally tasteless. On their deathbed, they have no stories to tell their children. The only thing say, oh, I have an obedient slave following me everywhere when I was young. We think on their side, it's really harmful. That's why you should vote for our side. But first, I just want to note on government strategy as a whole, closing government tries to claim benefits of social relationships and neglects the harm that exists all along with them. They cannot cherry pick it. The problem is they don't prove why romantic or why sexual relationship on their side actually works. But first, some responses and strategy review on opening government them. Like, I just want to note that they're really extreme. They only take the worst case of the worst relationship on our side to engage with. And their characterization is just so convenient because they say, oh, Robin is the same with human and robot is also different than human. We think we just don't really get what they want through that characterization. But they also contradicts because they said that robots don't cheat and they be human and human beings do cheat. Then what do they mean at the end of the day? I'll take POI later. But then at the same time, they also forgot the word everyone in the debate and in the motion itself. Because the thing is, they made a lot of points saying that there are people who don't want relationship, who don't like humans. But we think that those people in the status quo, they also have robots or sex dolls to date or do whatever they want. But onto responses to their case, then they said people don't rape on their side. I think that this is just a huge logic gap because it was never well explained. But at the same time, like some people have wife or girlfriend and they still cheat and have sex with others. And people in the status quo also have sex dolls. So we don't understand how it's prevented on their side. But we think it's actually harmful in the long term because then people with rapists or like people who commit crime will now be isolated and will never actually like be rehabbed because they only perform it with their own robot AI. But the second point they gave us is that the people will be hurt in the relationship like through divorces and they would be like really bad and upset. Then we think that this is already uncharitable because they only see the worst form of love. You meet one bad Chinese people, that doesn't mean that every Chinese people on the earth is bad. But second, I'll take POI later. We think that the meaning of love is not bad, but people having mental traumas that because people have mental traumas that manifest into their relationship. At least on our side, people went through challenges and learn from it. On your side, you have a robot slave listen to everything you say. You don't know how a toxic relationships look like. Therefore, you can get hurt in other relationships in life. And they also assume that stability is the metric for everyone's happiness, which is not true at all. But we also think a romantic relationship play a unique role in helping you grow because you also spend a lot of time with your partner. And this is someone who you feel emotionally related to and trust. Therefore, this is a unique source for your growth. Comparative then. On their people are stuck in a vacuum and never know when to get out or if they should change yourself or not. At least on their side, people might have been hurt, but they learn, they remove, and they evolve. But onto the point of closing government. Before that, I'll take from opening government.
People feel happiness based on comparison with others. If the concept of healthy relations you say does not exist, people will not feel dissatisfaction through relations, or because best case relations on your side exist, the people who can't access to such relations due to access gap and cheatings are gonna feel unhappiness. You have to engage that best case scenario does not exist, cannot be perceived on the first place on your side of the house.
Okay, I get it. So I think on the point of people comparing your side, I will be engaged right now. So first, on closing government and the point they gave us then, about you have autonomy in your relationship, I don't really understand why this principle is so important because you definitely will have autonomy because you're having a slave. But next, the second point is that will you be happy though? Because you don't have to try, reflect, or communicate, and it's actually harmful for your growth and yourself because you're literally living in a vacuum that have a slate that tells you that everything you do is right. But even if they're unsatisfied, but on the second point they gave us about that some people are ugly or they just don't want relationship in life and love is not equal, that if they're unsatisfied with the arbitrary factors of human life in general, they must defend a world where they are completely in control of AI in relationships. But I also want to note that the principle that they gave us is important because they never proved that why we don't have it in the status quo. I mean, they still have access to human beings. Maybe you as an average person don't date the richest person in the world, but you still have people with similar habits to you. It just it takes effort for you to talk to them, which we think it's actually meaningful because you actually put in effort. Two, we never said that people don't deserve relationship because as we already said, people who don't like humans can still have human contact. But to answer to the POI about how not everyone have access to relationship, we also told you that in the status quo, if people can also try dating app or other forms to get to get to know other people and to date them. So we just don't understand they just assume that everybody is in their own bubble and don't talk to anyone. So maybe good looking people might date each other, but that doesn't mean that other people can't. There are people who are similar to you, and if you want to pursue someone and try to get to them, it's still better than trying to buy a robot. But on the point that they try to push on about how you'll be emotionally satisfied, I just don't think that it works because people search for love and be satisfied and be confident in themselves because they find someone who actually accepts them for their insecurities. For example, if I'm a short person and I'm insecure about my height and I found someone that accepts it, then I will feel more confident in myself. And on their side, you will never find emotional satisfaction because then you just assume that, a robot only be with me and only love me because I pay the robot off to do so. Therefore, you will never feel satisfied because you can never feel satisfied because you can change them at any time. You don't have to put in effort and you don't have to try to resolve conflicts. Therefore, at the end of the day, we have closing opposition have proved to you why human growth is the unique benefit on our side. We prove to you that how the connection to oneself is so important. You don't only learn about your preference in relationship, but you also discover yourself about your own preference and what you like in a partner. And the second thing is that the people reflect on themselves and not live in a vacuum. Maybe you're a very misogynistic person and you get called out by your partner, and not having a robot stroking your ego every day. But we think that also importantly is we understand that love is not always perfect, but we think that it's still better than having a robot follow your fantasies and you will never be satisfied because you still pay the robot off to be with you. Therefore, we're so proud to post.
All right. I thank the opposition whip speaker for this speech. That brings us to the ESL finals of this tournament. Congratulations to the teams that made it thus far. It was wonderful having to listen to you all in this round. Please, you can leave the call right now so I and the panelists have a discussion. You join the main room and would most likely announce the result in the main room. Thank you. All right. Is the outcome still recording? We'll probably have to have our deliberation. And Melvin, please, are you still recording? I think you need to stop it and also leave us for us to have our deliberation. I think I can see.
Perhaps what we can do is just move to another recording room.
Yes, I was just about to suggest that because Melvin is not even responding to me on WhatsApp. Yeah. So let me think of a room. Let's use room 3. I can see room 3 is empty. So let's use room 3.
All right.